The Enemy Who Saved Me. A Warbound journal story. You ever notice how war turns people into shapes? A silhouette behind smoke. A helmet cresting a trench line. A shadow moving fast enough that your brain stops calling it a man. I used to believe the enemy was exactly that, a shape. A moving target. Something you aim at before it aims at you. And if you'd asked me back then whether an enemy could save your life, I would have laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it sounded like a child's fantasy. But there are knights in war that don't behave like rules. Knights that peel the skin off certainty. Knights where the world decides to show you what you are. And what you're not. That night, my blood sank into the mud of no man's land. And the enemy's hands kept my heart from stopping. Let me back up. Because if I start with the explosion, with the blood, it sounds like a story built to impress someone. And this isn't that kind of story. This is the kind you tell when the room is quiet. When the lights are low. When you can't sleep because your memory has decided to be louder than your breath. The day before it happened, I remember thinking about bread. Not heroism. Not victory. Brie. Add. There was this smell, faint, almost imaginary, like someone, somewhere, had toasted something and the wind carried a ghost of it across the trenches. It made me think of home. It made me think of kitchens. Of hands dusted with flour. And that thought, that simple thought, made me angry. Because war does that. It makes you angry at anything gentle. In the trench, men tried to act like men in stories. They bragged. They joked. They spit into the mud like it was a religion. But at night you could hear it. The soft, private sound of fear. Not screaming fear. Not panicked fear. The quiet kind. The kind that lives behind the ribs. I had a friend, Thomas. A kid, really. He carried a photograph of his sister like it was a shield. He showed it to me again that day, grinning like we were on a street corner, not in a trench. After this, he said, "I'm taking her tea." Oh, the sea. And I nodded, because that's what you do. You nod. You pretend, after this is a real place. The night the shell found me, the air tasted like metal. You know that taste? Like a coin on your tongue. The sky was low, clouds hanging like wet wool. Somewhere far off, artillery thumped like a giant's heartbeat. Not constant. Just enough to keep your nerves tuned like we were told to hold. To keep our heads down. To wait. War is mostly waiting. Waiting to be hungry. Waiting to be wet. Waiting to be afraid. Waiting to hear your name shouted. For something you don't want. I remember adjusting my gloves. My fingers were numb. I remember flexing them, like I could force warmth back into them with willpower. And I remember thinking, if this is the night I die, I hope it is quick. The shell didn't announce itself. It never does. There's no warning horn. No polite knock. Just the sudden tearing of reality. A sound like the world being ripped open. Then light. Not sunlight. Something violent and white. The ground jumped. And I went with it. For a moment, I wasn't in war. I wasn't anywhere. I was floating inside pure noise. When I hit the ground, I didn't feel pain right away. That's the strange thing. Your body sometimes delays the truth. It lets you live in ignorance for a few seconds, like murk. Why? Then the ringing came. Not in my ears. In my skull. And everything I knew became muffled, distant, like the world had been thrown under what? I blinked and the sky was gone. Smoke had eaten it. I tried to sit up. My body refused. Not like weakness, like a door locked from the inside. I looked down. My coat was dark and wet. I touched my side and my fingers came away shining. Blood. Warm. Too warm. The mud under me was thick. It clung to my sleeves like it wanted to keep me. And I realized where I was. Not in the trench. Not behind cover. Out. In the open. No man's land. You don't get rescued from no man's land. Not usually. Because the cost is too high. Because war teaches men to calculate life like numbers. I heard voices. Shouts, distant, then closer, then fading again. Some were ours. Some weren't. At that point, it didn't matter. Pain makes all languages sound the same. I tried to crawl. My elbows dug into mud. My breath came out in broken pieces. Every movement pulled at something inside me, like a hook. And the world narrowed. Not to heroism. Not to glory. Just to survival. I remember whispering my mother's name again. And then I whispered Thomas's name. Because for some reason, in that moment, I wanted him to live too. Oh. That's when I heard footsteps. Footsteps. Careful. Measured. Not panicked. The kind of steps that belong to someone trained. I stopped breathing. Not intentionally. My body did it on its own. Like if I became still enough, I might become invisible. A shape appeared in the smoke. Low. Crouched. A helmeted head turning, scanning. A rifle? I couldn't see. My vision was smeared with sweat and dirt. My hand moved toward where my weapon should have been. There was nothing. Only mud. Only emptiness. A voice spoke. Not my language. Soft, quick, controlled. The enemy. My mind did the only thing it could. It accepted death as if it were inevitable. I closed my eyes. Not bravery. Exhaustion. I waited for the shot. For the sharp, final punctuation. Instead, I felt hands. Warm hands. Strong hands. Not the clumsy hands of a boy. The practiced hands of someone who'd held too many broken bodies. Pressure slammed onto my wound. Pain flared so hard I thought I'd vomit. I screamed, a sound that didn't even feel like mine. The voice returned, urgent now. Then. English. Broken, but real. No move, he said. No, move. I opened my eyes. And there he was. An enemy medic. Young. Dirt-streaked. His face sharp with focus. His eyes not cold. Just, tired. Like mine. He wasn't looking at me like a target. He was looking at me like a problem he intended to solve. He pulled fabric from a pouch, bandage, clean enough to be precious. He tore my coat open with a knife. Not violently. Efficiently. Cold air hit my skin and I shivered. He pressed something into the wound. A pad. A cloth. Something to stop the bleeding. His hand was steady. Mine was shaking. I tried to push him away again. A weak gesture. He caught my wrist, not rough, not gentle. Just firm. A doctor's grip. "Stop," he said. "You die." That sentence. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Somewhere above us, a flare rose and painted the smoke orange. For half a second, I saw his uniform clearly. The insignia. The proof. He was the enemy. My body expected hatred. My body expected fear. But what I felt, what surprised me, was confusion. Because hate doesn't make sense when someone is saving you. He got under my arm. Lifted. And my world tilted. The stars were still gone, swallowed by smoke. Mud sucked at his boots. My weight made him grunt. But he didn't drop me. As we moved, bullets snapped through the air. That sharp cracking sound. Close enough to make you flinch even when you can't feel your legs. He muttered something in his language, a curse, maybe. Then he said, in English, like he was speaking to himself. "Stupid, war." Those two words hit me harder than the shrapnel. Because they sounded like something my father would have said. Like something any man would say if he was allowed to be honest. He dragged me into a shallow crater. A bowl of mud and torn earth. He lowered me down carefully, like I was breakable. Then he knelt beside me and breathed. Hard. His chest rising and falling fast. He looked at me. I looked at him. Two men from different sides. Two sets of orders. Two versions of the same fear. He pulled out a canteen. Held it to my lips. "Drink," he said. I drank. The water was warm, metallic. But it was life. I wanted to speak. To ask why. To ask his name. My throat produced only a rasp. And he seemed to understand anyway. Because he said, quietly, "I am, medic." Like that explained everything. Maybe it did. Here's something people don't tell you about war. It doesn't only kill bodies. It kills the simple logic of the world. In training, they teach you the enemy is evil. You are good. Black and white. Easy. But in that crater, with blood in my coat and smoke in my lungs, I saw something else. I saw a man who had chosen, for reasons I still don't fully understand, to treat my life as worth saving. He checked my bandage again. Tightened it. He pressed 2 fingers to my wrist. Counting my pulse. Like time mattered. Like I mattered. Then he looked up suddenly. His head turned toward the darkness. Listening. He went still. That stillness, it was fear in a disciplined shape. "They come," he whispered. I didn't ask who. I already knew. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a scrap of paper. His hands moved fast. He wrote numbers. Then more. I couldn't see properly. My eyes kept blurring. But he folded it carefully, like it was valuable. He placed it in my palm. Closed my fingers around it. "Keep," he said. "If you live." Then he did something I will never forget. He took the insignia from his sleeve. The mark that told the world who he belonged to. He ripped it off. And he dropped it into the mud. It sank a little. Dark cloth swallowed by dark earth. A symbol disappearing into the same mud that was drinking my blood. He stood. And for a moment, he hesitated. Not long. Just a breath. Like part of him wanted to do something else. Say something else. Maybe ask my name. Maybe apologize. Maybe promise something impossible. Instead, he turned. And walked into the smoke. Unarmed. Back toward his lines. Back toward the world that would punish mercy. I wanted to call out. To ask his name. To say thank you. But my voice didn't come. And then he was gone. Just another shape swallowed by war. They found me at dawn. That's what they told me later. A patrol. A stretcher. Men cursing about the risk. They said I was wrapped tight, bandaged in a way they didn't recognize. They said whoever did it knew what they were doing. I woke up days later in a field hospital. The smell of antiseptic. The sound of groans. The dull rhythm of suffering. A nurse leaned over me and asked my name. And for a moment, I almost gave her his. But I didn't know it. When I tried to tell the story, they looked at me like I was delirious. An enemy medic. Crossing no man's land. Saving you. Maybe you imagined it, one officer said. Maybe you were in shock. And I realized something. People don't like stories that complicate their hatred. Hatred is simple. Hatred is convenient. Mercy is inconvenient. So I stopped talking about it. But I didn't forget. The war ended. Or at least, the guns did. But war doesn't leave you when you leave it. It follows you into quiet rooms. Into marriage. Into Sunday mornings. Into the way you flinch at a slammed door. I went home. I tried to become a normal man. I got older. My hands changed. My face grew lines. But that scrap of paper stayed. Folded. Worn. Edges soft from being handled too many nights. And the insignia. I kept it too. I cleaned it once. Then I regretted cleaning it. Because the mud felt like part of the truth. It was years later, winter, when I finally followed the numbers. Not because I was brave. Because I was tired. Tired of carrying a question that never stopped scratching the inside of my chest. The town was small. Gray. Cold. The kind of place that looks like it has always been quiet, even during war. Snow pressed against rooftops like a blanket. My breath came out white. And my boots made that hollow sound on frozen ground. I found the cemetery at the edge of town. Iron gate. Old stones. Names worn down by weather. I held the paper like a compass. Row. Section. Numbers. Until I found it. A name carved into stone. A date of birth. A date of death. And under it. A word. Medic. He had been my age. That realization is a knife. Because you suddenly see how young you were. How young you both were. Children wearing uniforms. Told to be monsters. I did the math with numb fingers. He died 2 weeks after the night he carried me. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of living after choosing mercy. I stood there a long time. And in the silence, something became clear. The enemy isn't always the man across the battlefield. Sometimes, the enemy is the story you're told. The one that makes hatred feel righteous. The one that teaches you to stop seeing a human being. Because if I had met him on a different day, in a different place, I might have killed him. And that thought made my stomach turn. I took the insignia from my pocket. The cloth was worn now. Edges frayed. Still stained with mud older than a lifetime. I placed it at the base of the stone. Like returning something borrowed. Like closing a chapter that never wanted to end. Then I stood straight. I raised my hand. And I saluted him. Not as an enemy. Not as a friend. As a man. And as I turned away, I finally whispered the words I never got to say that night. Thank you. Stories bound by war.